Good boy.
Greetings, folks. Brittany, Augie, and Yuki here. Thanks for joining us. This is a Quinzee, a recent project of ours, in which we overnighted a few nights ago, and we'd like to talk to you a little bit more about that today.
So I have to admit that while I was inside editing videos, Augie and Yuki were busy shoveling this entire Quinzee by themselves the other day. I was super impressed. They did it in one afternoon.
It's helpful having a dog that likes to dig, right, Yuke?
Doing right now.
As he's doing right now. Dig, dig, Yuke. Good boy, dig, dig. We took as much snow as we could from the entire area, piled it up into a huge heap.
And so keep in mind that when you're building a Quinzee, you want the minimum height of your pile to be at least 5 feet so that when you dig the inside out, you have enough room to sit up, because the whole Quinzee all the way around has to be at least a foot. And if any part of it is too thin, it might collapse on you, which sounds like a pretty bad idea.
Yeah, especially if you're sleeping. So once the mound is basically done, then we got sticks with Yuki's help. I cut them down to about 1 foot and 2 inches and jammed them into pretty much all around. As soon as we started to see the sticks on the inside, then we knew we didn't want to go deeper than that. That's what would enable us to keep our walls at least a foot thick. The hardest part was the digging. And that's the part that you helped with.
When you say the digging, you mean the digging out the inside?
Yeah, here's why. When you first start, you don't want to make your entrance super big. You need to keep that entrance basically to the size of crawl space, right? So once you start, you got just this, and at that point you can't even sit up. So once you get in and you got your hole here, then you got to start working your way up. You got to start working your way off to the sides and getting it out. Until you can sit up fully straight, it can be pretty uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, it was super awkward.
But you just gotta push through.
You're down on the ground, but then also trying to dig up. But you also have to be careful, because often when you're digging up, you're digging right above your face, and then all this snow is falling down on your face. That's nice, Yuki.
Thank you.
So yeah, I mean the digging was definitely awkward. So I'm glad I could help with that.
Yeah, thanks so much. Seriously. Guys, one very important thing, this is not a survival shelter. Reason number one, it takes a lot of time in order to get that big mound of snow piled up. You have to shovel and shovel and shovel, and in the process you're sweating and sweating.
It takes multiple hours.
And then you don't just empty it, you have to let it set.
Minimum 1 hour, even better 4 to 6 hours, or even overnight.
And then you have to empty it.
Which takes a lot of time and energy.
So in the meantime, you are going to be sweaty, your body temperature is going to get cold afterwards, it's not going to be a way to stay alive.
Yeah, would you really want to waste all of your time doing all of that when you could be harvesting firewood, or going and finding food, or finding a way to get help? You know, in a really, truly survival situation, a Quinzee is not your best friend. That said, it is your backyard best friend, because it is so much fun and it's such a cool experience.
Bucket list. So one super important thing with sleeping out in a Quinzee is you want to make sure that you have fresh oxygen coming in and out so that you don't suffocate. That wouldn't be any fun.
Just one of the reasons you need air holes. The entrance would be great as an air hole, except that lets in way too much cold air, and suddenly you don't have any of the insulating properties of the snow if you have too much of a draft. So one of the things that we did once we were in there is we put all of our gear and our backpacks in front of the door to block up the door. But at that point, you actually can suffocate inside, which is no good.
Rule number 562, no suffocation. So actually, yeah, we just took a stick and pushed it up through the center so that it eventually punched through to the outside. Bam, there you go, air hole number 1.
You want at least 1 air hole for every person in there. It's just like if you're building a cold storage, you want an air hole at the top, and you want an air hole closer to the bottom, maybe not right at the bottom. But that's part of the reason for that is because then when all of the heat rises, and you know, in a snow shelter you might think that there's not a lot of heat, but you know, all of our breathing, there's a lot of heat, our bodies are giving off a lot of heat, and we had a little candle in there that was giving off some heat. And so the heat rises and escapes out the very top hole. And so the reason that you want to have then a hole at the bottom is because the top hole will suck air in through the bottom hole, which is kind of cool. And so that way you can make sure that you have really good ventilation without letting in too much cold air.
Our first winter camping experience ever, we will never forget, because moisture was probably the #1 factor that made it a uncomfortable overnight. But we survived.
We did everything wrong. It was -20 to maybe 25.
We were not wool junkies at the time.
Yeah, we did not know the magic of insulating powers of wool. We didn't have the right kind of sleeping gear. It was a nightmare.
We thought we were bundled up. We thought we were over-equipped.
A few of the things that we ended up doing wrong on that trip is, #1, when we were breathing into our sleeping bags. It was so cold that we covered up our faces, and that was the only way we could sleep because it was so cold. But the problem with that is every time you breathe, you let out lots and lots of moisture. And if you're letting out lots of moisture into your sleeping bag, that's just gonna make you colder and colder and colder and colder as the night goes on. Moisture is your enemy when it is cold. Make sure you don't breathe into your sleeping bag.
Yes. Got it. My nose was cold along with my toes, but aside from that, I was okay.
Actually pretty toasty. And so one other really important thing when it comes to eliminating moisture in your Quinzee or your tent when you're winter camping is
a candle. So over here, there was a tea light, and it lasted about 4 hours. So around the time that you'd get up to go pee anyways, then you change your candle and cover it back up. This protects it so that if it falls over, you're not gonna have any messes, and it definitely made a difference.
It made such a big difference.
There was not the crazy amount of moisture that I recall from that very first time winter camping.
Well, in fact, I don't think anything was wet. I mean, I keep hearing that when people sleep in Quinzees, that all their stuff gets wet. I don't remember any moisture, in fact.
It was pretty cool indeed. About -12, we should have had a thermometer. Next time we will have a thermometer just so that we can compare.
We slept pretty well overall. I did have to get up in the middle of the night to research suffocation because I started worrying about that.
That was the first time I was woken up.
When you're sleeping in a Quinzee, you want to make sure you're not sleeping on ground level. You actually want to make yourself a snow bed. Of course, you want insulation between you and the snow bed. But the reason you keep yourself off the ground is because heat rises, which also means that colder air falls to the ground. And so the coldest air is going to be right at ground level. And so you want to be able to be a little bit elevated.
And that's why the lowest point is actually the door. And so the reason that we have this trench going down the middle of the two beds is so that the cold air has an easy way to make its way out.
Okay, go inside shelter. Go inside. All right, so Augie, do you want to give us the grand tour?
My bed. There you go. And over here, Britt's bed.
And right here was Yuki's bed.
And over here is the trench. There is our candlelight. And just up over here, you have the air hole. And over here you have
the secondary lower air hole. Oh, there's some trees. That's cool.
And that is the grand tour.
You comfy there?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you give me your backpack to block?
Yeah, there you go. So I'm taking off my splash pants. Augie pretending to be asleep, and Yuki has finally settled down. Good boy. Any last words?
I'm hungry.
Well.
Glasses are just gonna have to go right there.
Well, had we known we needed a spot for your glasses, we could have made one out of snow.
It's got one right there.
Yuki, do you love it in here? You silly upside down dog in the crevice between the two beds? Love it.